Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to this week's edition of Fantasy Warfare Tournament. We are just 6 weeks away from WrestleMania, a two-night event happening on April 10th and 11th. You'll be able to catch that on WWE Network here in Canada and the rest of the world, for that matter, and also, I guess, on Peacock Network exclusively in the United States. But we are going to celebrate WrestleMania and do a whole bunch of different styles of tournaments this month, focusing on individuals, some matches, tag teams. The last couple of ones are going to be finding our own Mr. WrestleMania and what is the best WrestleMania. So stay tuned for the 6 weeks of WrestleMania. Want to thank everybody for watching us on YouTube and Facebook, and also catching the audio version on Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. We are part of the Ontario Independent Wrestling Podcast Network and also the Johners Network in the UK. So welcome everybody, whether you're in Ontario, throughout Canada, or over in the UK. If you're new to the Fantasy Warfare Tournament, we take a subject, find 16 items in that subject, and break it all down and find the best of the best. And to do that, we need odd numbers to be in the show. And you're always welcome to be a part of it. Definitely contact us, scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. You'll be able to see all the ways of connecting with us down at the bottom right now. And we need to bring in our panel, which consists of Stephen O'Neill in Toronto. Hello, Stephen.
Hello.
How are you today?
Cold. I mean, tomorrow's supposed to be warm. So warm.
We already know we break the fourth wall. Recording on a
really,
Tuesday, and it'll be out Wednesday evening.
It was really cold here. It was like minus 20 degrees with the wind chill, so it sucked. But, I mean, it's supposed to get really nice here, and it's been one of those weeks. I'm excited, though, for the WrestleMania start of our road to WrestleMania. We'll have 5 or 6 different individual tournaments for WrestleMania. So I'm excited.
Yep. And our third member of the panel is in Niagara Falls, and it's Jonesy. How are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. And if I was sponsored, I'd be sponsored by Krispy Kreme.
Very nice.
You'd be surprised, Jonesy. That's the one spot I have not gone since I moved into Toronto a year ago is Krispy Kreme.
Ah.
I think Toronto's about the only place that has one left. Maybe up in Ajax, Oshawa area, I think there might be still one, but in Pickering, but definitely not down here in southwestern Ontario. So if you're near one, go for it. Why not? But you're enjoying some Timmy's. I got a cherry cola from Circle K. So we all have a beverage tonight. And Stephen, you want to tell everybody what our subject is? Because I forgot to.
So this is, well, what WWE named Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels. So he has 17 WrestleMania matches. So we broke it down. This is a unique tournament because we don't normally we do 16. We're doing 17 because we're actually going to do a match to qualify into the round of 16. So I'm excited. Do we have a video or? No
yeah,
video.
We have a video. Just to touch on that one, because Shawn Michaels has 17, it was hard to go which one has to come out. If it was somebody with 22 and more, then you could go, okay, let's narrow it down to 16 and just play that. But to select one and pull it out wasn't really going to work. And oddly enough, with the way the bracket builder that we use with Bracket HQ, it actually put the 2 back-to-back Undertaker matches in the qualifier. Totally random. I had nothing to do with it. I just put in the names of the matches and the year that they were, and that's what it did. So I was originally going to see what happened and pull one of those matches out, but because they matched up against each other, it's perfect to start off with that and then get into the tournament, which I will break down after we see our video to show our matchups.
So I'll break it down. So our qualifying match to get into the round of 16 is Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker at WrestleMania 26, versus Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. The winner of that will then slide into that open bracket, taking on the Rockers versus the Twin Towers at WrestleMania 5. Then match 2 is Austin versus Michaels at WrestleMania 14. Next match is Bret Hart versus Michaels at WrestleMania 12. Then we have at WrestleMania 9, Tatanka versus Shawn Michaels. At WrestleMania 21, Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels. The next match is at WrestleMania 22 versus Mr. McMahon. And that's taking on at WrestleMania 8, Tito Santana. The next match is at WrestleMania 7. We called them the Faces of Fear because that's basically what they're known as. Versus at WrestleMania 23 versus John Cena. The next match is the triple threat match from WrestleMania 20, Hunter, Benoit, and Michaels. And it's taking on the ladder match from WrestleMania 10 versus Razor Ramon. The next matchup is from WrestleMania 11 versus Diesel versus WrestleMania 19 versus Chris Jericho. And the final to round this out is from WrestleMania 24 versus Ric Flair versus WrestleMania 6, the Orient Express. Yes, there's a lot of talking on this one.
But I don't know how much there will be. Depends. Some of them, weren't overly charismatic, should I say, or like stand outish. Somehow he earned the title of Mr. WrestleMania, but I'm pretty sure that's due to his second half of his career. Jonesy, your thoughts before we dive in?
Yeah, definitely. He's not Mr. WrestleMania, at least not in my mind. If you look at his win and losses, he is 6-11. He's only won 6 out of 11 of his matches. Yes, there's some great matches there, but there's been many other great matches by other people.
Yeah, and we might even break down some of those as we go along this month of March. But let's dive into the qualifier, I guess we're calling it. And that is Undertaker and Undertaker. So I want to do a little bit of a reverse order because of why they end up coming out. I'm going to do WrestleMania 25 taking on Undertaker. It started off with Shawn Michaels and JBL in a feud over his name and everything. Finally, the blow-off match was to determine who was going to face Undertaker at WrestleMania. Shawn ended up getting that honor by beating JBL, and then Vladimir Kozlov. Finally, it made it to Taker. They teamed together, won a match, I believe, over JBL and Kozlov. But then Shawn ended up attacking Undertaker. They started playing mind games with each other all the way to WrestleMania. The match itself, it started off with Shawn coming from the heavens, all in white and smoke and everything, in Undertaker garb, but white version, and Undertaker coming up from the ground with flames and his traditional lighting and sound and all that. So they definitely were out to outdo each other in a way. And that match itself went totally back and forth. A lot of tombstones, blast rides, super kicks, moonsaults. I saw you moonsaults from the outside through tables. Sim Snuka was the cameraman, part of Deuce and Domino tag team. He was the camera guy on the outside that pretty much didn't catch Undertaker when Taker did his dive over the top rope and Shawn got him in the way. But he did recover after that scary moment, came back in, and Shawn ended up, unfortunately, losing, and the streak continued at 17-0. It was actually voted the greatest match of that year, not only by WWE fans with the Slammy Awards, but it was also by the Wrestling Observer newsletter and good old Dave Meltzer and possibly his voters, or however their awards are decided. the other side of the coin is the fact that the next year, Shawn wanted a rematch, saying that he knows he could beat Undertaker. That started at the Slammies, and it was a last-minute decision where he called out Undertaker. I guess behind the scenes they were negotiating, trying to figure it all out, and it was up to Shawn, according to Vince, to decide if he wanted to do a rematch or not. Vince wasn't 100% behind it. So when they accepted the award for the Slammies for that match, he then threw down the gauntlet, and Taker didn't want to do it character-wise and said no. It wasn't until Shawn Michaels cost Undertaker the world title to Chris Jericho in the Elimination Chamber that Taker finally said, yes, let's do this. But Shawn had to put his career on the line. It then eventually became a career-ending match, also a no-holds-barred match, so everything could happen. Almost a exact replica of the match that they had the year before. No Sim Snuka or anything like that, but a lot of the same things: super kicks, tombstones, a lot of ankle work, just a big mixture. People were in awe of this match. And it took Shawn coming off with I believe it was a moonsault, and getting caught tombstoned after Taker had said, stay down. And Shawn ended up losing. Taker is 18-0. They got up, hugged each other. Taker left. Shawn got his last bow. And except for the Saudi Arabia match that was horrible with the DX against Brothers Destruction, he actually was retired and honored that stipulation until recently. Given my choice between the two, for me, I got to go with their first match because it was different. The time that they also had the Royal Rumble, that was almost a 15-minute match before that ended. That's why I'm going with WrestleMania 25, Shawn versus Taker. Steven.
I went WrestleMania 25. I preferred it. No other reason than that's just one of those things.
Jonesy, is it a clean sweep?
It is a clean sweep. I thought the 25 match was actually the better match. There was less goofs by Shawn Michaels in it. He was pretty much perfect in that one. What else I got on this? Yeah, there was definitely that botch move by Taker, flying out of the ring, even though it did look like he landed good, but just very hard. It's actually amazing how quickly he did get up from that. And who did you say was the guy that was supposed to catch him?
That was Sim Snuka, Jimmy Superfly Snuka's son, but he was also part of the tag team Deuce and Domino. So he was, I believe, Deuce of that tag team. There were a bunch of greasers. Cliff Compton was the other member with Cherry. I like the gimmick because I'm a Grease fan, but yeah, he didn't last too long.
Which is unfortunate because that was probably a tag team that they could have done a lot with. Two guys that could have done so much.
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about those guys on another episode when we talk about 90s tag teams or 2000s tag teams. But 2000s tag teams. But so that's a clean sweep for WrestleMania 25 over 26, which puts it into matchup number 1 officially. And that is then the Twin Towers, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty's first WrestleMania match, going against the match that we just talked about. The upside is these were tag team specialists going against the guys who caused the Mega Powers to explode. If you watch Twin Towers, oddly enough, they never won the tag team titles. But they had a great manager in Slick. We talked about Kenneth was it Ken Johnson last week as being the son of the wrestler that's blowing my mind at the moment. But they worked good together up until just before WrestleMania 6 when they blew up. But tag team specialists. They were all over the place doing missile drop kicks. Unfortunately, their size did not match up, and they got flogged. It was not a match that led to anything. Nothing started it to get there. It was during a time when WrestleManias did have like one or two big matches, and everything else, they spit out a card and said, here you go. And WrestleMania 5 was loaded with a lot of tag team matches. Given choice, obviously, between these two, I'm going WrestleMania 25 with Shawn and Taker. Steven.
This one's pretty easy to me. It's 25.
Yeah. Jonesy?
There we go. The name you're looking for was Rufus R. Jones.
Yes, thank you.
Also known as Freight Train Jones. This one's fairly easy. It's the Undertaker match. The other match is fine. There's a couple of spots in that, of course, Idiot Morella and his terrible 5 counts. He would just let the Rockers, not once but twice, just go in the ring and do whatever they wanted for like 20, 30 seconds, as Jesse Ventura pointed out. There was a big ass splash by Akeem, and the Boss Man powerbomb to Shawn Michaels is pretty beauty. And that's how that match ended, was with a powerbomb and then Akeem splat. So it was a good tag team match, but no competition for Undertaker match.
Excellent. So Shawn Michaels, Taker moves on to round number 2, which brings us to our second matchup, which is Steve Austin versus Bret Hart. And I don't have that one. Go ahead,
So
Steven.
So I'm going to start with WrestleMania 14 for Steve Austin. So in January, Austin won the Royal Rumble while Shawn Michaels retained his WWF World Heavyweight Championship, both under Mike Tyson, I believe he was in a skybox for that show. Or they're calling it a director's box, but so the following week on Raw, McMahon revealed that Tyson would be part of this as special guest special guest referee at WrestleMania. And then Austin showed up, and I would say this is pretty much where the Monday Night Wars changed, when Austin gave the middle finger to Tyson, offered to fight him. I can remember watching that and being completely in awe. Coming up to that, you just could tell. Well, there was a No Way Out of Texas in Your House, which was an 8-man non-sanctioned match. Michaels declined to participate in it, and Austin won by pinning the Road Dogg. It was very interesting going into it. I think we all, at least myself, I thought Michaels was going to win it. But in 20 minutes and 8 seconds, Steve Austin beat Shawn Michaels with Tyson punching Michaels. And then Michaels was gone for, what was it, 4 years?
4.5 years.
Yeah, because he hurt his back. Now I'm going to move on to WrestleMania 12 versus Bret Hart in the Iron Man match. Basically, the concept was whoever had the most falls in 60 minutes would win. Michaels won the chance to face WrestleMania, or Bret Hart at WrestleMania, because he won the 96 Royal Rumble, and then he defeated Owen Hart at In Your House 6 for the right to keep his title shot. I would say this is probably one of the best matches I've ever seen. Basically, Michaels wins because it has to go into overtime because neither competitor got a fall in the 60 minutes. So Michaels beat Bret Hart 1-0 in a sudden death overtime in 1 hour and 1 minute and 56 seconds. Ongoing Bret Hart. The match versus Bret Hart at 12.
Jonesy.
The first match, Austin, WrestleMania 14, fantastic match. It actually shows how good Shawn Michaels was at that time. The moves that he was still able to execute and take, having the back issue that he did, and knowing it's his last match for a while and being pissed off at the world and all that, he still put on one hell of a show. That's why, to me, he is a well-respected wrestler, because he definitely gave it his all when he was out there. Some of the things in this, it had a big fight feel to it, where a lot of his other matches, even though you know it was a big fight, it just didn't feel as much as this one, because it was also a big fight for Austin, of course. There was an ass shot in this. Shawn Michaels has a lot of matches where he shows his butt, and didn't disappoint in this one. Tyson, I love the fact that Tyson gives Austin a great nasty wedgie, and Austin turns around after it, and I'm not sure what he said, but I'm sure it wasn't super kind. What I didn't like about this match is the end of it. I hated the end of this. The fact that, okay, Tyson gets in, no problem, but how fast the count was completely ruined the match for me. I did not like that part of the match. Everything else I thought was well done. To this day, I just don't understand why Tyson did such a fast count. Why would they tell him to do such a fast count, or did he do that by accident? Because it didn't make sense. So that one, he goes up against Bret. This match is very good. It's not one of my favorite matches. I personally think the match is pretty boring. However, it is a fantastic match. I don't like watching hour matches, but they pace it out well. It's basically a textbook on, if you want to stretch out a match and keep the crowd in it, this is how you do it. Today, though, I don't think, especially at a WrestleMania type audience, that match would fly now. There's too many slow spots in it. There's too much staying on the mat and just doing a hold. But it was kind of a mix of old wrestling and the newer wrestling together. I got to go with the Bret Hart WrestleMania 12 match, only because it is a good match. It's just not one of my favorites.
Okay. Just a quick footnotes on that. Shawn Michaels for number 14, people didn't know if he was even going to make it because of his back being injured with that Taker match at Royal Rumble, and he missed the pay-per-view beforehand because of his back. But then just with his attitude and the drugs issues and stuff like that, apparently Taker was on standby to kick his ass if he had refused to drop the belt to Austin. But I remember going out before he went to the ring, he dedicated the match to Hebner, who had a brain aneurysm that same weekend, and that's why Kyoto was the referee of the match. And then with the Bret Hart one, they did a whole thing making Bret almost like the old guy and Shawn being the young guy, doing the zip line in, the boyhood dream. I would kind of agree with Iron Man matches. The problem is, when there's a time limit stipulation, that you can ignore 90% of it and come back and wait for the last 5 minutes to heat up. They played a swerve with doing the overtime, and that gave Bret more cause to be pissed off and being Bret Hart. I loved Shawn winning that one. I love Steve winning the other one. I'm throwing Steve a vote, even though Bret is moving on, which takes us to our next matchup, which is WrestleMania 9 Tatanka and WrestleMania 21 Kurt Angle. Jonesy.
All right, and this is for the IC belt. This was the first match on the card as far as on the pay-per-view, televised pay-per-view. This match went for 18 minutes and 13 seconds. I think the only other match was just a tiny bit longer than that, was the Hogan Beefcake tag team match. To start off, Shawn is the first one down with Luna, who I believe was new at the time. I think that was her first appearance in the WWE, at least on TV. It was at Las Vegas, at Caesars outdoors. A lot of people shit on WrestleMania 9. I personally think it's still in the top 10. It's one of the first WrestleManias that really felt, it didn't feel big, but it had a great set. I'm a guy for sets. I love sets, and that one, I mean, I'm still amazed at, it's 1993 and how good that outdoor screen was in that much sunshine. I know we're not talking about the match, but I liked all the entrances. It was fantastic. Anyways, this was actually one of the better matches on the card. Shawn of course, came out first, then Tatanka, and Tatanka came out with Sherry. It starts with the feeling out process. Shawn was on the top rope, jumps, and an arm drag catch by Tatanka. Michaels, of course, does his turnbuckle flip move that he does a lot. And I put that in the high spot category because especially a lot of times he goes to the floor when he does that. It can mess him if he doesn't do it right. Awkward sunset flip. Spent some time on Shawn's shoulder. Shawn from the apron spot does a spot there. Back and forth in the ring. Tonka does his war dance comeback shtick. And Shawn caught in a power slam from the top rope, was pretty damn good. And Sherry then cheats, kind of ruining the whole damn thing. And Shawn is counted out. So it was a loss for him, but it was a good match where I'd say 50 to 60% of the matches were good on that card, but the stinkers were big stinkers. There's 4 high spots in that match. And that's going against the Angle match at WrestleMania 21. It was the 6th match on the card, and he lost by submission in this one. And the match went for 27 minutes and 27 seconds. And there was 4 high spots in this. I counted high spots, basically a spot where if he does it wrong, he could frig himself up pretty good. Or the other guy, kind of. But anyways. It starts with Michael slapping Angle, so there's some taunting going on. Angle takes him down quickly. They do some fine mat wrestling, feeling out process. Angle starts to work on Michael's back. Crash and burn elbow drop by Michaels. Awkward cross body to Angle from top rope to outside. I just looked awkward. The crowd was into this match pretty good. Weird turn moonsault on the outside to the table. That really looked weird, but just because he turned and then the way he hit, the crowd was stirring at this point just before that happened. And then elbow drop and sweet chin music into the ankle lock, which was kind of cool. And that was it, submission. Both matches, I think, are pretty good. The better match is the Angle match, but that Tatanka match showed how good he was at that point, only being about 2-3 years into being on his own. But the Angle one I have to go for.
Yeah, I'm going to also vote for the Angle match. If you listen to the Angle podcast that I think it's now just episode number 3 that Conrad Thompson's doing with him on Sundays, he talks about that match and everything behind the scenes on that one. But the Tatanka match, they was still caught in that whole probably wasn't going to go with Tatanka, but Marty Jannetty wasn't around, just like for WrestleMania 8. There was a lot of setups for that, but they kept on failing. It just seemed like a regular match, even though it was a nice opener. There was a lot more action being focused on the women involved. So it was just a match, in my opinion. So, of course, I'm going with Kurt Angle, even though Shawn lost in that effort. Steven? Unmute.
Clean sweep. Yeah, I hit mute. My bad. No brainer. Clean sweep.
Yeah. Okay. So that one is in the books. Angle and Shawn moving on to the next round, which gives us match number 4 of this. And we're doing Mr. McMahon against Tito Santana. I just said the same thing with Tatanka's match with Tito Santana at WrestleMania 8. Tito was doing the gimmick Al Matador at that point. So he was wearing his avocado and pink and gold thing. So he wasn't the Tito Santana. He was more of a cartoon character. It was a match because Shawn needed a match, I'm assuming. And so did Tito because he was still around. Shawn had just turned heel, and with Marty not around due to his own personal demons, it is what it is. Then when you go to the other side of things, and it's Vince McMahon, it started off with Vince trying to humble Shawn and be under his control, wanted the old Shawn Michaels back instead of the Bible thumping Shawn Michaels, and said he'll screw Shawn just like he screwed Bret, which I thought Bret screwed Bret, but oh well, whatever. They had a lot of interaction there. Finally, at one point, Shawn Michaels was forced to kiss Mr. McMahon's ass thanks to Shane, and eventually they did agree to have the match. It was going to be a no-holds-barred match, which definitely helps cover up Vince's shortcomings. I thought I heard at one point this was supposed to be actually Eddie Guerrero against Shawn, but of course Eddie passed away months before that, and so they had to change direction. And then during this no-holds-barred match, you had interference from the Spirit Squad, where Shawn got rid of them using their little blowhorn and tossing Kenny into all of them. Say goodbye to Dolph Ziggler. But then out came Shane McMahon hitting Shawn with the kendo stick. He got rid of Shane after handcuffing him to the ropes and beat him with the kendo stick. Vince staggered a bunch of times, and Shawn didn't pull the trigger on the Sweet Chin music. Eventually got out a ladder, put a garbage can on Vince McMahon, put him on a table, climbed a really tall ladder, which I believe Jonesy said was an 11-rung one. So instead of a standard one that you'd have in your home. And he jumped off with an elbow through the table and garbage can, and Vince took that off him, super kicked him, Sweet Chin music, 1, 2, 3, and Shawn has a victory at WrestleMania, one of his 6. And so, yeah, I'm definitely going with Vince McMahon match. He brought out a lot in Vince that only Shawn Michaels could, really. Steven?
It's Vince McMahon. It just early Michaels is just not that entertaining, especially against some of these guys. I love Tito Santana, but it was the avocado. So we know McMahon's moving on, but is it a clean sweep?
Jonesy?
Yeah, it's a clean sweep. But that Tito Santana match wasn't half bad. And, even though Tito was in the avocado outfit, he did pay respects to Reba McEntire, who sang the anthem that year. And this was, again, for the it was the first match. And Shawn Michaels did a lot of first and second matches of WrestleManias until he finally broke But the crowd was into that match. There was a botched ending that really sticks out for me in this match. Uh, it looked like Sherry was supposed to hold Tito's leg. Tito's leg just gives out on him in a weird way, and then Shawn forces him down, and it kind of looks like Sherry was supposed to be there. She wasn't. So Tito was still acting like she was, and Shawn realized that she wasn't there. So he was trying to make it look, legitimate when he went down. It just looked really odd to me. On that alone, the McMahon match wins. There's a lot of stuff in that McMahon match. There's only 2 real high spots in that match that Shawn does that are really dangerous, and they were whoppers. And that ladder, 11 rungs, not including the top part, normally those are 7 rungs.
Okay, so Vince McMahon moves on, and our next matchup is Haku and Barbarian, the Faces of Fear in WCW, taking on John Cena at WrestleMania 23.
So this is a pretty easy one for me. WrestleMania 23 at Ford Field. I was there for this match. Basically, the main rivalry on Raw brand was between Cena and Michaels over the championship. The Undertaker won Royal Rumble, and he went after Batista on the SmackDown side. I remember that match as well. Michaels defeated Edge and Orton in a triple threat match to get a chance to face Cena at WrestleMania. And live in person, it was actually a really good match, which you wouldn't have thought right away, but I mean, it was actually a really good match. I believe they win the tag titles from Rated RKO. I'm not really sure. It's a blur. But I mean, Michaels at the time, their entrances were amazing. I can remember it. I remember the Cena was driving the car, and it's made it look like it smashed through the glass to get to the entrance. It was really good entrances. So I'm going John Cena. Cena beat Michaels in this match via submission in 28 minutes and 20 seconds. I'm going John Cena.
Jonesy.
I wonder how much that glass smash costs, because it's rigged up to do that, and it looks really cool. I think they had a little trouble with the camera work on that one because you barely get to see it going through the front, but it still was cool. It must be really expensive, or they do it more often, like they used to do it with Austin a few times, and I forget someone else I think they did it with too. But anyways, it's a cool thing. It's enough to win for me. He does the usual stuff in this match, the turnbuckle flippy match, which he's really good at doing. And it's a bloody affair in this match, especially on Michael's part. It's just it's a pretty good match.
Okay. So Cena Michaels WrestleMania 23 moves on to the second round, and we go to our next match. It was Jonesy, the triple threat for WrestleMania 20.
Is that a clean sweep?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Just keeping track of it.
Yeah, no problem. So triple threat match, Benoit, and Triple H, and the ladder match at WrestleMania 10. Jonesy.
All right, so this was the 12th match in the event. I'm not counting the dark matches. This is the main event. It was a loss for Michaels, and the match went for 24 minutes and 47 seconds. And there's 4 good high spots on this that Shawn Michaels does that he could have killed himself. Shawn came out first. There's some mat wrestling going on. Nice slap fest between Benoit and Shawn. A feeling out process. Triple H disappears for a while. I'm not exactly sure what happened. One thing I didn't like in this match, especially that first time where Triple H leaves and lets the other two wrestle, the spots where they did that were too long for for what happened to them to stay out. These earlier triple threat matches are not as good as what we see now. As far as making it make a little more sense of why he's been out there for so damn long. There's top rope moonsault to the floor. Both Triple H and Benoit. That's really good. He does his high elbow, similar to Macho Man, but without the pizzazz. He does sweet chin music inside turnbuckle move, or sorry, the inside out turnbuckle move. He kind of does it twice, that flippy move. And Shawn is very bloody on his head at this point. Benoit table spot teamed by both Triple H and Benoit. Shawn gets dumped over the top rope and Triple H taps out to the crippler. All in all, it's a pretty good match. Especially for a main event, it delivered. The next one, Razor, everyone goes on about this ladder match. I think there's much better ladder matches now, but this did set the bar high to begin with. They did have some test matches Shawn Michaels that were decent, but this was really the one that kind of started the whole ladder match craze in the WWF. But it did take a while for them to continually start doing them as a regular kind of special feature. So it's a ladder. IC championship is on the line. It's the night match, and it's the second to last match. And it is a loss for Shawn Michaels. And this match only actually lasted for 14 minutes and 87 seconds, but it seems like a lot longer. Shawn was the first out with Diesel, back and forth out process. Diesel gets the early boot to the back by the ref. Shawn Michaels does his turnbuckle flippy thing hard to the floor. Ladder was brought into the match about the 7-minute mark. Razor has ladder and is putting it in the ring when Shawn Michaels does the baseball slide, throws ladder at Razor. At this point, Vince McMahon is overselling this match, in my opinion, especially when it comes to the baseball slide. It's not that neat of a move, but he treated it like, oh my God, this was the most amazing thing he ever seen. Threw the ladder at Razor. That personally I thought was a hell of a lot more impressive than the other move did. Razor treats the ladies to Shawn's ass for this one from the ladder. So everyone gets a great view of it. Off of the fifth rung with the elbow by Michaels, clotheslines himself, falling from the ladder onto the rope. I think they kind of did that one too many times because it kind of ends with a similar move, except he crotches himself. So he goes over the top turnbuckle after getting thrown into the ladder, hitting the floor. Some offense by Razor using the ladder. Shawn does a ladder spot outside the ring, then falls hanging onto the ladder. Michaels jumps from the top turnbuckle into Razor and ladder. Ladder falls slowly, but it does hit Shawn hard on the back. It looks like it hurt. It may not have, but it looks like it freaking hurt. Both go to the top of the ladder. Shawn's knocked off. And does a soft drop kick to get Razor off. That was one of the only moves really in the whole match that didn't look like it quite went as well as they wanted to. Ladder then falls on Razor from the corner, and then Shawn climbs the ladder just to be knocked off again, doing the crotch thing on the top rope, and he gets tied up into it, giving Razor enough time to climb up the broken ladder and win. A pretty good match. It has a lot more spots in it than I remembered it having. It definitely wins this round.
So your vote is for Razor?
Yes.
I too am voting on Razor winning this one because Shawn Michaels sort of weaseled his way into that WrestleMania 20 match. His feud with Triple H should have been over and done with beforehand, but he kept on just sliding in. He super kicked Benoit as he was going to sign the contract and put his name on it, so it made a triple threat. But this match was to build Benoit. It wasn't anything about Shawn. The WrestleMania 10 match, it made Shawn and Razor. For myself, it was the first time I saw two people claim to be the champion and fight for unanimous champion, undisputed champion. Bret Hart was kind of pissed off that it wasn't him in the ladder match because him and Shawn did it before as a example to Vince, and then it got given to Shawn and Razor. So, of course, more fuel to the fire in Bret and Shawn's hate. But, yeah, I'm going with Shawn and Razor. Steven?
I'm going the same thing. I mean, I wouldn't have actually liked to see Bret Hart in this match. I think it would have not been as good, but it's definitely the Razor Ramon.
Well, the upside for Bret in that event was the fact that he got an amazing opening match with his brother to start, and then ended up winning the title at the end. So, sour grapes, you didn't get the ladder match, the first ever pay-per-view ladder match, but look what you got. You got an amazing match with your brother, and you got a title. So, it is what it is. Our seventh matchup is WrestleMania 11. No. Okay, WrestleMania 11 Diesel taking on the WrestleMania 19 matchup with Chris Jericho. So Shawn Michaels and Diesel broke up months beforehand. Leading up to this, Shawn ended up winning the 1995 Royal Rumble, thinking Davey Boy Smith had won it, but Shawn executed the first ever use of that both feet much touch the ground rule. He survived, dumped Davey, got the win, was supposed to have Pam Anderson by his side as part of the stipulation for that Royal Rumble win, and that led up to WrestleMania. He had a Psycho Sid as his bodyguard, and now you had two former best friends going against each other. The biggest problem with this match is the fact that Shawn was sort of playing a fan favorite and the underdog because of his size over Diesel. Yeah, he was supposed to be the heel in the whole thing. It didn't make sense. The David and Goliath sort of aspect. There's too many cameramen around ringside. You could tell Shawn was agitated by that because he dragged actually one of the cameramen away. Sid got kicked out of the ringside area. He ended up coming down with Jenny McCarthy, and Diesel was with Pam Anderson for the entrances. Diesel ends up winning. The match had both ladies, and that was pretty much it. And it wasn't even the main event for the world title because the next match was Bam Bam against LT as the main event for that show. The next night on Raw, Sid ends up turning on Shawn because Shawn didn't want him interfering again and causing him to not get the title. And he turns fan favorite when Diesel ends up getting him, saving him. Behind the scenes, you hear stories of Bruce Pritchard saying that him and Pat were trying to push Shawn as a fan favorite, and Vince was like, no, he's a heel, until that WrestleMania match, and he's like, God damn it, he's a heel. I mean, he's a face. Why didn't you guys tell me this? And they had to quickly do that switch that they did on Raw. Then you go to the other side, and it's Chris Jericho. Jericho wanted to always be Shawn Michaels, and they started going against each other, costing each other Royal Rumble matchups and stuff like that, attacking each other and just one-upping each other. And Jericho was a heel at that time, and they had a really good back-and-forth small guy matchup, flying around, great punch for punch sort of style because they were so evenly matched. And Jericho ends up losing the match after getting hit with the super kick. They do the whole, oh, you were great, you're great hug type deal. and Jericho then nails Shawn with a low blow and walks out on him. I got to go with the Jericho match just because of how insignificant sort of that first title matchup for Shawn going after Diesel was. And it wasn't the main event, and it just looked kind of bad. Steven?
I'm going with Diesel because I can't stand Jericho.
Okay. So our first sort of tiebreaker is going to Jonesy, who is advancing.
Unfortunately, I didn't bother rewatching the Diesel match. I thought Diesel sucked. I didn't like him until he turned into Nash and went over to WCW. He still sucked there, but at least he had a better presence there, I think. The Jericho match is just better from what I remember of the Diesel match. But I don't think Jericho's match is going to make it to the past the next round, but I'm still giving it to the Jericho match. It did have the shitty entrance for Shawn Michaels in this one. It was supposed to be a good entrance, but they chose to go with these really crappy glitter guns that, like, I'm sorry, WWE, where did you get this stuff from? Like, only 4 out of the 6 worked, and you could tell that Michaels, I think he moused at a point after the 4th one that I don't think I'm going to do any more of these. There's a few good moves in that match. Jericho.
Okay. And our final matchup of this first round, Ric Flair versus the Orient Express. Steven.
Well, this is an easy one. It's going to be Ric Flair, so let's talk about that one because this is the retirement match. February 25th on Raw, Flair challenges Shawn Michaels to a match at WrestleMania. Michaels accepted it after some reluctance, knowing that due to our previous announcement by WWE Chairman McMahon, the next Flair loss would result in his forced retirement. Flair said that it'd be an honor for him to retire at the hands of Shawn Michaels. Michaels wins. This is the super kick. Those videos played all the time when he says, "I love you," and he super kicks him. Michaels won in 20 minutes and 34 seconds. Unfortunately, neither were at their prime. I would have loved to see a Flair versus Michaels both in the height of their prime, but this one's easy. It's Ric Flair.
Jonesy.
Sorry, I'm just reading a note here. It's the Flair match. I was very impressed by Flair in this match. He showed that he could still wrestle when he had to, and he definitely does in this one. There's some fun stuff in this because one of the few times I remember Ric Flair actually hits his move off the top of the rope, and he does something else in this. He holds the suplex that he holds. I've never actually seen Flair hold a suplex. I'm sure he did in his younger days, but in his definitely older days, that really impressed me. The Orient Express match, go back and watch the Royal Rumble one. It's so much better, and I think that match is better than the Flair match. But the Flair match is definitely one of the best ones I think on the list, considering the participants, and that's the one that vote.
Yeah, it's a clean sweep for me on this one as well. It's Ric Flair's retirement match. Orient Express with Sato and Tanaka for that one. Fuji with the salt and Marty Jannetty falling over a guardrail and getting hit with a cane was the result of a countout or whatever it was. Yeah, just not that great of a matchup. It's a shame that the tag team technicians did not get treated better, but it's against Ric Flair as well. The match that you talked about, Jonesy, was at the Royal Rumble, and that was Kato with Tanaka, which Paul Diamond was way better than Sato. But we finished round one. Steven.
All right, let's go over this. So Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at 25 beat the Twin Towers 3-0. Bret Hart at 12 beat Austin 2-1. Kurt Angle from WrestleMania 21 beat the Tonka match 3-0. Mr. McMahon at 22 beat Tito Santana 3-0. John Cena at WrestleMania 23 beat the Faces of Fear 3-0. Razor Ramon in the ladder match at WrestleMania 10 beat the Triple Threat at WrestleMania 20 3-0. Chris Jericho at 19 beat Diesel 2-1. And Ric Flair from 24 beat the Orient Express 3-0. Setting up our next round of WrestleMania 25, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker versus taking on WrestleMania 12 versus Bret Hart. WrestleMania 21, Kurt Angle versus WrestleMania 22, McMahon. The next match is WrestleMania 23 versus John Cena, taking on WrestleMania 10, the ladder match versus Razor Ramon. And then the last match of round 2 is WrestleMania 19 versus Chris Jericho versus WrestleMania 24, Ric Flair.
So, yeah, it's kind of interesting that moving on to the second round, really only one first retirement made it through, which was the Razor Ramon match. Everything else was his second half of his career. Jonesy, your thoughts on these before we move on?
I was just thinking, my goodness, I hope we don't do an Undertaker mania, because I'm not watching all his matches, man. I like the Undertaker, but his earlier stuff is pretty much a snore fest. He got better with age. That's about all I had to say.
He stopped being a zombie, really. Steven, your thoughts on this first round before we dive in?
I mean, other than the Jericho beating Diesel, it pretty much played out how I had it.
Okay.
I mean,
so our first matchup in round 2, Jonesy, is Undertaker 25 versus, there is a second one before retirement, and that's Bret 12.
Yes. The Undertaker match was the 7th match in the card. It was a loss, and it went for a little over a half hour. The Bret one was the 7th in the main event. He won the world title belt. I still hate the ending in this one. I have to go with the Undertaker match only because, yes, the Bret Hart one is a better match as far as I think wrestling goes, but I really did not like WrestleMania 12's main event. I thought the whole thing was freaking pointless, that there was no falls, no pins, nothing in the match, and they had to go into sudden death overtime. What the fuck is sudden death overtime in wrestling? Fuck off. Why the hell did they bother even having this whole line of just the hour? It's such a boring match to watch, but it is good as far as, especially if you're a wrestler, you probably appreciate it more than I would. I think that's about all I really want to say about that. The reason why I went with the Undertaker match is because the Bret Hart WrestleMania 12 match to me lacked emotion while they're in the ring wrestling. They reacted to the move mat, but there was no hatred really. Neither one of them was doing a lot to add to the story line besides the wrestling itself. That's all that match was a wrestling match, nothing else. And wrestling, but not, you know what I mean? That's where the Undertaker match had both wrestling in it and your harder stuff. There's some great stuff that happens in that match. So it's the Undertaker match for me.
Okay. It's also Undertaker as well for myself. There was just more match to it than the hour of a lot of move, rest, hold, move, rest, hold. You know, even though it's Shawn Michaels winning his first title, I gotta go with Taker. Steven?
Oh, I went with Bret. I would much rather watch an old school hour-long match. So I went with Bret.
Yeah, when Jonesy, you asked about why would you go that and then sudden death, it's almost like the old school with the TV title. You know, you have 10 minutes and somebody would want 5 more minutes. You know, except for they didn't do any pinfalls or submissions during it. And maybe if you mix up and throw a couple in there for excitement and then have a tie going into the end, then you get your 5 more minutes or whatever stipulation. But that's how.
I'd like to know why Bret, after that happened, why Bret didn't go get Clarence, whatever his name is, the lawyer that Cornette used a lot in the WWF. He could have got that overturned because Bret did not agree to those terms.
I don't think Clarence Mason was existing then. So our next matchup is Kurt Angle against Vince McMahon. I prefer the actual wrestling and moves of the Angle match over the garbage and the interference that happened with the Spirit Squad and Shane and the garbage can and the table and the ladder. It just got dragging on and on. You knew Shawn was going to win unless there was some very underhanded things going on, but he was always taking out the extra activity, so it didn't matter. Angle is getting it for me. Steven.
Oh, Angle. This is easy.
Jonesy?
Sure. I kind of messed myself up here, so if my vote doesn't count, then don't worry about me. I erased something on my board here. I have to look what the fuck's going on. What was this match supposed to be? Who against who?
Kurt Angle against Vince McMahon.
Okay, that's why. You know what? I gotta go with the McMahon match. No, it's not a better match as far as wrestling, but the McMahon match for me was a lot. It was the one of the best matches at that time of what wrestling was doing with all the run-ins and all that silly stuff. And the fact that McMahon, the moves that he took, and Shawn was protecting him in that match. The moves that Michaels did during that match is pretty impressive. The two main high spots in that's the reason I'm going for that one. The Angle match is good and all that, but there's a few things in that there's weird movements going on that if you know, skating gods as far as wrestling was, you know, people were scoring it like skating in that, they would have got a lot of points taken off them.
Okay, so we have Cena versus Razor, 23 versus 10. Steven.
As much as I was there for the Cena match at 23, I'm going the Razor. The ladder match took Shawn Michaels to the next level, even though he lost it.
Jonesy?
I agree, and Xena, especially in this, shows he definitely has a different style of wrestling. I think I like him as a wrestler more on the microphone than actually in the ring. He's a bit of a clunky wrestler, especially early on. How he takes his moves and delivers them are kind of weird.
Okay, so I too am going to go with Razor over Cena. And our final matchup in round number 2 is going to be, I lost it for a second, Jericho versus Ric Flair. Jonesy?
For me, it's Flair. Jericho match again. It you know what? Oh, that's hard to say. Actually, I think I remembered what I was thinking before. I'm sorry. I'm giving that one to Jericho because the Jericho match is the better wrestled match, and they definitely, I think they could have had better match than this one. There's some good stuff in this one. The Flair match was fantastic, especially considering how old Flair was at the time and the moves that were done. But a critical match, I actually enjoyed the wrestling part a lot more in this one.
And for myself, I'm going to go with Ric Flair. Just the emotion that was put into the whole thing. He had his whole family, including Reed, who was alive at that time. We saw young Charlotte Flair, Ashley, ringside. The moment of "I'm sorry, I love you" and super kick. What more can you ask for a match and somebody's retirement? So I gotta go with that. And Steven, you're the tiebreaker.
Oh, it's Razor Ramon.
No.
Or Ric Flair. Ric Flair. I was looking ahead.
Who's smoking what?
Okay, so Ric Flair moves on, and we look at our bracket for the semifinals.
So in round 2, we had Undertaker from 25 beat Bret 2-1. Kurt Angle from 21 beat McMahon from 22 2-1. Razor Ramon from WrestleMania 10 beat John Cena 3-0 from WrestleMania 23. And Ric Flair from WrestleMania 24 beat Chris Jericho from 19 2-1. Sets up our semifinals of The Undertaker from WrestleMania 25 versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 24. And in the other semis, it's the match, the ladder match from WrestleMania 10 versus Razor Ramon versus the retirement match with Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair at WrestleMania 24.
Okay, so any surprises going into this?
I had the Hart match going to the finals, but that was the only one difference.
Broken bracket there. Jonesy, your thoughts? Anything surprising?
No. Actually, I'm not very surprised at all.
Okay. Well, we go to our first semifinal match, and it is Undertaker against Kurt Angle. Wow, 2 great matches. I'd have to say Kurt's and Shawn's was more technical compared to Undertaker and Shawn, but they told a full story, I think, with that. Even with the botch with the dive over the top rope, that falls on Snuka for that one. I don't know if Shawn and Angle got any Slammies or Wrestling Observer Newsletter awards, but Shawn and Taker did. So I'm voting for Taker over Angle. Steven?
Oh, I'm going Taker. I love that match. So,
And Jonesy.
It's a clean sweep. I agree that the Angle match was more technical, especially at the beginning. There's some fine mat wrestling going on there. But the Undertaker match, it was just a bigger match. And even that botch was a good thing for that match because people talk about it. It's brutal to watch, but in the same, again, it was the fact that Undertaker was able to continue and did hurt himself real bad on that. It'd be a different story. The botch would have definitely changed the match if Undertaker hurt himself on that.
Okay, so Undertaker's moving to the finals. Going to be a hard one to beat, but can one of these two beat it? Steven, WrestleMania 10, Razor Ramon, WrestleMania 24, Nature Boy Ric Flair, retirement.
I'm going WrestleMania 10. I much rather watch the ladder match. Unfortunately, Ric Flair was not the Ric Flair that we all knew, and same with Shawn Michaels. So I would much rather watch the ladder match. So I'm going Razor Ramon.
Jonesy.
I agree and disagree. I think Ric Flair, that was one of his matches in a long time. It's one of my favorite matches of his because of his age and what he was able to pull out in that match. He hadn't wrestled that hard in a while. You could tell that he was it was getting to him during the match, but he kept up with and to keep up with Michaels at that time is pretty impressive. And I think Michaels, honestly, I think he was, to me, he was at the top of his game during that time. Maybe not, he wasn't as good in the ring, but he had everything together as far as putting on a match and helping Flair through that match, protecting him when he needed to. The same thing that he did with McMahon. There's some things he did there. Definitely in the Bret match, Shawn Michaels uh, kind of Bret in one spot. I believe he half caught Bret with his arm and really slowed him down. I'm just talking about.
Flair.
I know we are, but I'm saying how good Shawn Michaels is at protecting the other wrestlers. That's why I continued on with those. It's the Razor match, though. Even though I'd rather watch the other match, the Razor match is so well put together of a match.
Well, that makes it a clean sweep because, I was going to go with Razor as well. The Flair Michaels match has a lot of emotion to it. But if they were at their prime, wow. They definitely were not. Shawn would be gone 2 years later. And just, I don't think Shawn had fell down that rabbit hole of not people not liking him and the drugs and everything that happened. So he was in his prime, definitely against Razor. So, Steven, one more time.
So in our semifinals, we had The Undertaker from WrestleMania 25 beat Kurt Angle from WrestleMania 24. So it moves The Undertaker to the finals. And WrestleMania 10, Razor Ramon beat 24 versus Ric Flair 3-0 as well. Setting up the finals of WrestleMania 25 versus The Undertaker versus the ladder match of WrestleMania 10 versus Razor Ramon.
Okay, and Jonesy, you get to start that.
Let's see. Seventh match for the Undertaker match on the card. The match went for a little over a half hour, while the Razor one only went for about 15 minutes. But there was, that was pretty good considering it was one of the first ladder matches, and some of the moves they took, they didn't really know how, I don't think they knew some of those moves how it would end up, but they didn't have the referees quite doing what they were doing later on, where they were really helping protect the wrestlers and communicating. I got to give it to the Razor match, though, even though I'd rather watch the Undertaker match, probably because I've seen the Razor ladder match so many times. There's much better matches now, but as far as putting together only a 15-minute ladder match and really having that ladder match in for just a little over half of the match, it's a very, very good match. So for me, I think that's his best match, not just what he was able to perform, but the person he was dancing with. It just worked.
Yeah, it helps that you're in there with one of your best friends, part of the Click members and everything with that. And as I said earlier in the talking about it, first time I'd ever seen two guys claim to be the champion, and then both belts up there, and you see that final thing where Razor's holding the titles outstretched in his Razor pose, but the gold just gleaming there in Madison Square Gardens. As much as I love the Undertaker and Shawn match, your winner is going to be Razor Ramon and WrestleMania 10. But, Steven, was it a clean sweep?
Do you know what one that's from?
The theme to WrestleMania 10.
Yeah, I think the Razor Ramon ladder match was his best match, hands down. So that's the one I had winning it.
So there we go. That is our rundown of Mr. WrestleMania, all 17 of his WrestleMania matches. It's unfortunate that the Rockers were treated as badly as they were. It's unfortunate that his first couple of matches as a singles competitor in 8 and 9 were not as great as they were, but then his first big one being number 10 set him on the path to greatness, basically. And so WrestleMania 10, Razor Ramon, it takes it. So next week we'll be back.
Do you think that out of all the different themes and songs that WrestleMania made, that one that was used in the earlier WrestleManias, that's my favorite? Would you say that's your favorite?
So next week we'll be back with another edition of Fantasy Warfare Tournament. We will look at another aspect of WrestleMania. We're going to talk about that this week and get it out there for you next Wednesday at 6 p.m. And we'll definitely highlight something that was worth looking back on in the history of WrestleMania on our road to WrestleMania 37 on April 10th and 11th. Guys, you got anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Well, the new Sluggin' with Stephen O'Neill featuring this week Gabriel Fruez. It's quite of a good read. He's quite an interesting guy. That's at cwnonline.ca. Again, that's Sluggin' with Stephen O'Neill featuring, and this week is Gabriel Fruez. I'm probably pronouncing his last name wrong.
Frueza.
Yeah.
That's okay. Jonesy, you got anything you want to plug?
Yes. This Week in Wrestling history. It's Thursdays. It's at noon, and you get to hear me screw up a lot of Japanese names.
Especially this week, I think, because there's going to be some Japanese stuff. There's a lot of birthdays this week, and they'll be Thursday at 8 p.m. Plus, join Steven and myself Thursdays at 8 p.m. for the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast, and also join us every day at 7 and noon on the Facebook page where we're putting up votes for the third annual Ontario Independent Wrestling March Madness Tournament. 64 talent from all across Ontario competing to be the last one standing, almost like Highlander in a way. We've had a good response. We've added some more people to the Facebook group. We're on our way to 500 members, and we definitely enjoyed the votes. We'll review where we're standing Thursday at 8 p.m. and who's advanced so far in the first round, and maybe even give a preview of what is coming up the following week. So definitely join us daily, 7 and 12 on the Facebook page for your daily vote. And let's have some fun, because we also get the talent involved with some great promos. So we're out of here. Thank you for joining us on YouTube, Facebook, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Ontario Indie Wrestling Podcast Network, and the Johners Podcasting Network. See you later.
If you want a variety of wrestling news and history, look no further than the Scumbags of Wrestling family of shows. On Wednesday nights at 6 p.m., join Shawn, Steven, and Jonesy as we look for the best of the best and break it all down in a unique tournament format on Fantasy Warfare Tournament. Then, Thursdays at noon, take a look back at the rich history of our great sport with This Week in History. Relive title changes, births, deaths, and some of the best events of all time. Finally, join us for the latest in wrestling news, show results, and predictions Thursday nights at 8 p.m. for the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. The Scumbags Wrestling can be found on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Instagram, along with our audio versions on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. We're a proud part of the Ontario Indie Wrestling Podcast Network and the Johners Podcast Network.